Hi, I'm Scott Hanselman. This is another episode of Hansel Minutes. Today I'm chatting with Dare Obasanjo. He's a lead product manager at Meta. He used to work at Microsoft, and he has been opining on the internet as Carnage for Life for many, many years. And we worked together, I want to say 20 years ago when you were doing System.xml. I still think XML could happen. There's still time for us to make it happen, right?
It happened for a while.
There was a moment there where I was deep in it, but now the kids, they switched to curly braces and some of them just use white space, but I still think that angle brackets can have their day. It was all you. But I wanted to have you on the show because I have followed you, certainly when we work together, but also as you move around from Twitter to Threads to wherever, your voice as kind of an analyst, you're kind of like my news source for the Bay. I used to listen to some people that work for, VCs, but you have a very unbiased analyst's voice. I'm surprised you haven't started a newsletter. You just kind of naturally spout your opinions on the net. Why have you done that so long? For 20 plus years, you've been that voice.
It seems almost artificial to say now since tech, but I just kind of love tech. I've always sort of loved like the technology, thinking about technology, reading about technology. I've always had opinions as well. And so I remember blogging when blogging first became big way back in the day, and being like one of the first few people at Microsoft who used to blog, and where we had like a get together, like a handful of us, Don Box and a few other people. We're like, hey, we're like the 6 or 7 people who blog at Microsoft. And I loved hearing and learning about technology, and I loved just sharing what I learned. And I figured out, like, I guess way early on, that it's easier to remember a thing and understand it if you explain it to someone else. It's sort of a memory trick and an understanding trick in general. Like, you don't really understand it unless you teach someone. So I just kind of got very used to, I like this topic. If I can explain it, like reduce it down to its elements, that means I understood the topic. It means I understood the story. It means I understood the article. It means I understood the essay. And so I kind of just got into that habit way back in the day when Google announced they'd drop a paper on MapReduce or BigQuery. And I'd read it, and then I'd just do a blog. That way I know I understand it. And then over time, I don't know, I got kind of more senior in my career, it was helpful to just know what was going on in the industry trend-wise. Starting in technology, but more and more towards like, I think strategy, like business strategy, corporate strategy. And so I started like just reading a bunch of like different sites. And I mean, TechMeme is the site I probably use the most as my anchor, but I read like TechMeme, Reddit Technology, right? News, Hacker News, stuff like that, TechCrunch, the information. And yeah, and I see a thing and I'm like, why are VCs thinking about like constantly looking for the next big platform? Why are people so incentivized to talk about crypto? Why, with the rise of generative AI, how is it going to change my space, my job, or how is it going to change my industry? And it's just interesting to read what different pockets of the industry are doing and understanding about technology. And it's also helpful for me to go like, okay, if I can synthesize this into 280 characters, 140 characters, whatever, it means I got the essence of the story. All right, now that I've already written it down, I might as well just share it. I remember someone a long time ago saying, instead of answering an email all the time, just write it. I think it was you.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, your words are wasted. I don't want people to I'm not going to give you the keystrokes. I'll put them on my blog and then I'll email you the link.
Yeah, and so it was just like that. Like, I got a lot of thoughts on what's going on now with layoffs. Like, like how to think about your job. I mentor people. And it's just easier for me to go, hey, I wrote it once. Here's how to think about your manager. Here's how to think about, weighing roles. Here's how you think about strategy. Here's how to think about tactics. I've written it before, just as opposed to me, like doing a lengthy thing. And it's just an easy way to share.
So here's more of a strategy question. You're highly technical. Back in the day, you wrote code and hard code. You are now, more of a manager. You left Microsoft as a partner. You're highly placed at Meta, but you talk like an MBA. Are you like a person who kind of like has an MBA in your head? Because you really have an MBA mind. And when I looked at your LinkedIn, I see your computer science degree, but I was surprised that you didn't have an MBA because you seem to really have a foot that's deeply rooted in being highly technical, but very much a business head. Is that natural, or do you think you might get an MBA at some point?
I guess I don't say it's natural because it's odd to say you're naturally into like business strategy, like some sort of nerd, but I guess.
It seems to be your thing, though. I mean, you definitely dig it.
But I've always sort of thought of the idea of the long term impacts of what you do,
Hmm.
separating out intent and impact. So, like, hey, you meant to do this thing, but this is actually what this leads to. And then the other thing that I learned over time is, well, it's sort of empathy, understanding how people respond. And one of the things I learned is that a lot of people don't have empathy, which means like it's hard for a lot of people like building products or thinking about what they're going to do. Like think about this other entity in the equation is a person who also is optimizing for their needs and their. So I learned over time, like whether it's like building a feature, partnering with someone, like one of your peer that you're programming with, whether it's working with another team, whether it's working at another company, whether it's business strategy, there's often a component of just not understanding and thinking about the other entities as people who also are trying to optimize for their own needs.
That's game theory, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, there's definitely a bit of game theory there. And for me, that's part of the difference in the magic of being in product management versus being an engineer. Because in product management, like I'm constantly thinking, these engineers, like, what are they all optimizing for? What's your design team optimizing for? What's your marketing team optimizing for? What is the broader organization optimizing for? Then it's like a puzzle of how can you maximize as for as many people as possible, and then prioritizing the hierarchy of what the customer's goals are, what the business's goals are, and then like the individual team's goals. So it's kind of like programming was fun, but it's like organizational programming. So I kind of like that. And so that's kind of why I like product management. And then sort of like tech news is sort of similar, like the streaming studios and when the strikes were happening. And I was like, okay, we already know the streamers are unprofitable. And now the writers and the actors want more money. When you put those together, that means the studios are now going to be in a situation where they're losing more and more money and they have to pay out. Eventually, folks, it's already beginning to look like they're losing too many subscribers. So what's going to happen after that? Some streamers are probably going to give up. Some streamers are going to realize, like Peacock and NBC, wow, instead of we have The Office and we make money from The Office, we now keep it and we're not you can't watch anywhere else. But now we need to make as much money from people subscribing to Peacock as we would just sitting on our bikes, licensing The Office. And so you realize you're going to have to change your business model. And all of that comes from just two things. Starting from reading, a lot of streamers are unprofitable. The actors and writers want more money, or a lot more money, natively, for what they were getting. And so like that sort of thinking through, I guess what you call the game theory, is fun. I just like it. And I also like getting feedback on my ideas as well. I try to be a person with strong ideas loosely held. So I try to think like, okay, so here's what I think my mental model of it is. And then people give feedback and I go, okay, you know what? This part of the model doesn't work. So you should run. So sharing also gives me the opportunity to learn from like other people sharing their ideas and kind of like just sharpening the idea as like the feedback rolls in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like learning in public.
Do you think that level of empathy and systems thinking, right? Thinking about like within game theory, there's the idea that all the actors are rational and they all have different things that they want to accomplish and they're all fighting effectively against each other to meet their goal. That is what I tell to my mentees is that tech is a lot squishier than they realize. They thought they were hired to write code and they wonder why some people are successful and they're not successful. It's less about the code that you're pumping out, and it's more about, to your point, impact. The older you get, the more senior you get, the more you realize that it is understanding what the other person in the other department needs from you and making literally win-win situations. Like, what's the Venn diagram where what you want and what they want touch each other and getting all of that interactions. And a lot of younger and earlier in career people, I feel like, are missing that point. They don't see the big picture.
Yes, I think a lot of people, especially me in particular, for example, like got into tech thinking about the fact that it's about your individual work and the quality of your individual work. the quality of your design, the quality of your code, like you run your code, it works or it doesn't work, it's fast or it's not fast. That's what technology is about. And when you start in your career, it is about that. As if you're a PM, it's like your your specs or your PRDs, are they good quality? Are they not good quality? How you work directly in your team as an engineer, it's about the code that you write, like even for your particular feature. But as your responsibility and scope grows, like the software is not too complex for like one person or one team to write. You end up having a lot of interdependencies. And as you described, once you have interdependencies, you have to talk about I need work done, and they have their own, like, some other team, some other product has its own priorities. Sometimes some other company has their own priorities. Even your customers have different priorities as well. And how do I now manage all of these to actually deliver impact? Even just like what's the right code for you to write when becomes important. I need other people to write code as well. How do I get them to write the code that I want on the timeline that I want at the quality that I want?
Right. So, what has changed though from when you and I started 20 plus years ago, where we felt like we could make those kind of strategic decisions, where now there's a very defeatist, there's a very downer vibe in tech. And we hear executives at the highest level making millions of dollars saying, you should all be thinking about how you, the little people, can move the stock price. But we know that a level 59, which is the entry level at Microsoft, or an engineer one, very likely cannot have any motion on the stock price. And then thereby, when they hear the executive say that, they feel disempowered. Do you get the impression that the vibe in tech right now is very powerless? And I don't remember feeling like that 20, 30 years ago.
There are multiple dynamics at play there. One of the key dynamics is, I would say tech is more mature now than it was, a number of years ago, right? In that, like, the shape of the ecosystem is now clear. And I think the term the EU uses, which, right, we're not the gatekeepers are now pretty clear as well. And so, 20 years ago, you didn't feel like you needed any permission from anyone to do anything, to build an app, to build a browser. That wasn't the way you felt. It also felt like a green field where like there was so much opportunity in the kind of products you can build. Today is very different. Like today, like if you want to build an app, like you can name companies. If you want to build an app, you're beholden to what Apple wants, if you're building or Google wants. Even if you want to build a website, you're beholden to almost the same names because Safari and Chrome are the most popular browsers. So you're beholden to what they care about, which is not really how it felt. Even if it was that way, that wasn't how it felt. Like 20 years ago at the dawn of the web, and then a couple of years later, like at the dawn of mobile. But it's very clearly the sense you have now. And I think like a lot of the enthusiasm around what's the next platform, whether like it's interested in crypto or the metaverse or whatever, is wanting to find a space where it doesn't feel like you're constrained by some set of gatekeepers or some set of companies who are so big that like there's no like, wow, there's no flicker. There's no, like a bunch of folks just went in and made this really exciting, cool thing. And even when something does feel like that, it's not on the back of a handful of people building something cool. It's a bunch of people who got hundreds of millions of dollars from VC to try to do something. It's like Figma is Figma is like a thing that just feel like it came out of nowhere and showed that there was like slap.
We didn't know we needed Figma until Figma got made. And Figma is also an example of a web app that, from my perspective, is impossible. I know tech, I know JavaScript, I know the platform all the way down to the metal. It still is so good that I don't know how they pulled it off with just JavaScript and Canvas.
And even though on the back end, it's actually like C++ being like, then that's, this is even more insane. And I think the thing there is that they like apps like that went from being things that happened all the time to being rare. And even then, there's another set of gatekeepers you have to get through, which is the VCs, right? You're beholden to, if you're building not only the platforms, if you try to build something cool today, your choices are going through the gatekeepers or the VCs, which is great for some people and not so great for others. Or there's like, going to work in big tech. And the thing about big tech is, as you pointed out, there isn't a ton of opportunity anymore. the era of Google is building, while they're building a new service every other weekend, is gone. Like the era of Microsoft going, hey, maybe we want to be young and hip and build a bunch of services is gone as well. Like you only expect to hear that Google is, unless it's a chat app, is winding something down.
Right. Before, when you and I were coming up, they were making a new thing every weekend, and now they're killing a thing every weekend. I don't know if you remember. So you worked, this is just a random aside, but I want to call it out because it's worth pointing out. You worked on Windows Live and Windows Live Writer.
I worked on MSN Spaces, Windows Live Spaces, and so that worked with Writer because it was a blogging app, and yeah.
Exactly. So then you probably remember that I worked with the team, and then we eventually, when Writer died, we open sourced it. And we open sourced it, and we call it now Open Live Writer, and it's in the Windows Store, and it's open source, and it was a really hard thing to do. Last week, I didn't tell you this because you don't care, but like last week, something broke on the Google backend for Blogger, and now people who use Live Writer are like losing their images. And it's such a perfect example of bit rot because there's nobody there. There's literally no one there. Blogger could just be on someone's mini tower under someone's desk somewhere deep in Google. And there's probably one human who has one day a week to keep Blogger running by kicking that box. I don't know who that human is, but now I have thousands of users that are swarming on the Open Live Writer forums wanting to know what changed. LiveWriter hasn't had a build in 2 years. It's fine. It's a stable API. But because it was built on whatever Blogger used, and then the Blogger APIs and the media APIs, it's built on a house of sand. Unlike, like you worked on famously on RSS Bandit, which which built on RSS. I still run my own blog. I'm working on getting my blog onto the Fediverse. Like, should we be building on these big platforms, or do you think it's a time for Posse? Publish your own site and syndicate everywhere. Could the web get weird again? Or do you think we're stuck with all these walled gardens, threads included?
So I think one of the questions you're asking is, can we have an explosion of smaller sites? Do we need to have like these big giant like social media sites owned by large players? I think unfortunately, because of the scale of the web, meaning once you have enough people, you're going to have a bunch of bad people. It's just, it's like, one of the kind of exercises I do to remind myself of this is that, let's say there's like 1 in 100,000 murderers. Like the murder rate's usually out of 100,000. And like cities usually like 1, 5, 6, whatever, like, right? So that means that like when a site says we have, like 1 million users, they literally have, there's 60 murderers on their websites.
You're just arguing that like right now, if you put 31 people in a room, one of them has COVID. That's just stats. And you're saying you put enough people on a social media site, you have N number of murderers.
So fine, not as egregious with murderers, but like bullies, rude people, whatever, like it's just in numbers.
Yeah.
We tend to end up like these large services is that at a particular scale, they overwhelm you. And, I made a comment when Threads was, early on. I think I made it internally at Meta, and I also said them externally. A social media site is just 2 things: recommendations and content moderation. People want to see new stuff, and they want to make sure you don't see any stuff that pisses them off or makes them feel bad, right? And the second one has to be good, otherwise the first one doesn't matter. So eventually, it's just content moderation.
But if I own the content and I do it on my tiny little site, and we make it easier for people to spin up WordPress sites and things like that, then the only content moderation I need is deleting comments on my own page. I feel like this is a thing Windows Live Spaces try to do. It's a thing that WordPress tries to do. 2/3 of the internet is WordPress. I think the problem is no one ever made it easy to have certificates and domains and stuff like that. We had Wix and we have Squarespace, which makes it easy to make a store. We don't have GeoCities and all those kind of like Tumblr.
I think the Fediverse is trying to do that, right? Like, well, you can host your own server. Even that is some degree of burden. I mean, the reality is that, like, again, if you think about the breadth of basically technical savviness on the internet, there are people who just creating an account is as far as they want to go.
That's the thing, right? My non-technical parent does not want to run a server. She just wants a page. She just wants an account.
And so, like, no matter how easy you do it, you make it, like, there's still, like, even you're just saying, all you have to do is delete comments. That's work. I don't want to read spam every day. Like I already got to deal with that in email. And it's a pain in the ass. Like I don't want to read spam every day. I don't, and so people just want to outsource even that. You know what you have in Fediverse where like you still end up having globs of collections of this person runs this thing. And then it just becomes a power log of there'll be one that's most popular because they have the best content moderation and the best.
Okay, but then let me stop for a second. That's COGS, right? Cost of goods sold. As soon as you have a long tail of I put a site up and now I have to keep it running, I have to keep it from rotting, and then content moderation becomes a thing where humans have to get involved. Then that means 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road, it's Blogger and Google and has it's 7-person team, 1-person team, half a person team. Now it's an intern. And then they have to shut it down because the cost of goods sold goes up, but it was always free. So there was never any goods sold at all. You can't have COGS and have zero revenue on all of these loss leaders.
Yes, that's one of the things that's unfortunate about how, because I work in ads, right? In my mind, ads is like the greatest business model humanity has ever come up with because it's wonderful because, like it's a win-win for everyone. You host a service, you give it to people for free. So people get access to service regardless of income level. You can be like a student in Nigeria, you can be like, like a billionaire in Silicon Valley, and you use the same free Twitter. So people get free services. Advertisers get like new business. So like the businesses that wouldn't exist if not for the internet. And the awesome thing about advertising is that like it's a progressive tax. So people who spend a lot online who are rich end up subsidizing like the student in Nigeria who doesn't have to buy anything online to like, so it's amazingly progressive as opposed to like, subscriptions which are regressive. Everybody now has to come up with $5, regardless of whether $5 means nothing to you or, like it's a day's wage or a week's wage.
I remember buying a TiVo to skip past ads, and there's always ways to avoid ads and the ad blockers. Some people say they don't surf the web without an ad blocker. I feel, though, I agree with you that ads are an ideal way to subsidize free services. But then it became creepy when we started following each other from site to site. And now there's this myth, which I honestly, as a techie, I don't know if it's a myth or not, where, you say Kleenex out loud and tomorrow I'm going to get ads about Kleenex. And I don't know if it was which of the listening devices in my house set that cookie. But we've all had that experience happen. Don't you think that ads has an uncanny valley that it falls into of creepiness?
I would be lying if I didn't say that, like, unfortunately, like 100,000 people, 6 murders. Like, as people learned, like, oh, the more you know about people, the better the ads. People got more incentivized and the more scrupulous, unfortunately. And where, like, it did get too creepy. And not only did it get too creepy, it got creepy in a non-useful way. Like, I bought a thing last week, and you're like, yo, would you like to buy this thing? Like, you're like I'm not going to buy a mattress every week. I don't need mattresses following me around the internet for like 2 to 3 weeks everywhere. So unfortunately, ad industry just failed to self-regulate there because it's not just that, this is where like my logical side comes out. It's not just that like it's creepy, it's just not effective. Well, like no one is going to buy them 5 unless they get work. Even then, if they work at a hotel, you're not buying them one at a time. So no one is like, I bought a mattress last week and you should try to sell me a mattress again while I'm just reading a news article.
Yeah. The usefulness is just not there.
Yeah. So I think unfortunately, I hate the tragedy of the commons happen there. So while I do believe that like advertising helps, like it's generally win-win, the sad truth is that a bunch of the advertising industry, you can call out my employer as well, just went too far in making it like where people felt uncomfortable, regardless of whether like or not like, hey, this like advertising is paying for the service, you don't have to pay for it. Like, yeah, but this makes me feel uncomfortable. And as an industry, the industry did not self-regulate well enough to like address those concerns.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't mean to back you in a corner for you to think about your employer. I'll throw my employer under the bus because I had recently a little tiny win where in modern builds of Windows now you can turn off the widgets pane, which was just giving me a bunch of spammy news garbage. The fact that we had to guilt people, that I had to do internal threads, that I had to complain to VPs, that I had to shame us publicly, and others as well. I mean, I'm not taking credit for the work, but like that, it's even a conversation that I don't want like the National Enquirer next to my CPU widget on the computer that I own on the operating system that I paid for is a ridiculous conversation to be having. And it's not off by default. You know what I mean? I'm still going to have to install Windows and then turn it off. Is so dumb. It's like one more checkbox for me to do. But of course, I haven't also bought a copy of Windows in many years, right? It comes with the PC for most people. So then maybe Windows is a free OS, which brings to the thing. You've got to pay for it somehow.
Yeah. There's no such thing as a free lunch, even though zero interest rates made it feel that way for several years. Similar to, the conversation with streaming, where like it simply was not reasonable for all of these services to be making all of these shows and charging you like $5 for it.
I want to call that out. You said something really deep recently. You said positive vibes over business value was a zero interest rate phenomenon. At the end of our podcast here, would you unpack that? Talk to me really briefly about what a zero interest rate phenomenon is and why it isn't sustainable and why we're seeing that really intensely right now with layoffs and even more.
We had, I guess, historically low interest rates for I think the past decade and a half. And what that generally meant was that like borrowing money was cheap because if you kept like your interest rates were so low. So like you were better off just giving people money and investing it than saving it and doing like anything non-risky. So you're incentivized to be risky with the money. And so like that percolated through the system. Like, like instead of like having your money in the bank, it's better off investing. Like even regular rank and file big tech employers were like investing in startups, which is super risky because they were like, hey, I have all of this free money. We got to a point where no one just bothered asking. This work that we're doing, like everyone was building lots of random stuff. Like I think like Snapchat was like, we have a drone that follows you around. We're gonna build for like a company to do, but it's unclear like how much of a business that is for like photo sharing app.
Yeah, I saw the ads. There's a little plastic drone, little cheap Chinese drone that floats up in the air, takes a picture of you because you don't want to put your arm out. Like if we as a society, we still can't feed the hungry. We still don't have healthcare. But how many cheap plastic drones could you pump out until you go, okay, I got enough? And the AI pin and the rabbit, everyone's all in agog about the rabbit AI device. That's an app. That's not a device. That's stupid. I mean, period. Sorry to be so crisp, but that just, somebody paid them though. Like someone raised money for that product.
I mean, that's exactly the thing. There was a time when like no idea was too bad. Everyone got funding, and everyone got funding with the anticipation that you'll grow and you'll figure it out. And part of the myth of that was because a bunch of companies did do that. Like Google famously was like, we're just going to give people a lot of money to hang out, and they're smart. And they stumbled on their ads business model, and like even like Meta and Facebook. No one believed that it would one day be as big a company as it is today. So that shit bias being what it is, people then believe like you just have to have a big company and it'll make a bunch of money. And we now know that's not true. You can have a giant company and all you're doing is losing money.
It is not. Yeah, hope is not a business strategy.
But for a long time it was.
Yeah, for a long time it was, but the free lunch is over and the zero interest rates are no longer going to happen. I just want to tell you that I appreciate your commentary. I have for many years, and I just wanted to have you on the show as an appreciation to remind people that you're out there dropping knowledge. You can find Dare all over the internet, whether it be Mastodon, Threads, or whatever, as Carnage for Life. Carnage, the number 4 life. Basically, your username everywhere. And I continue to appreciate your insights, and I thank you for coming on the show today.
Hey, it's great talking to you too. I can't believe it's like 12 years, since the last time we chatted.
That's crazy. I got to look at the thing here to see when you're going to be like episode 930 something. I had you on episode 123. You took a chance on me in 2008 to talk about the interesting problems that social networking sites make. 16 years ago, you were already being a strategist about the social graph. Really interesting stuff. That's so crazy. I can't believe it's been so long. Cool, man.
It was great talking to you. Take care.
Thank you. This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.